Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siva Diandara and my student number is 038.
My name is Anissa Rizky Wayutaningrum with my last student number 042.
My name is Nimas Ferdinand Cinta with last student number 062.
My name is Muhammad Rivaldo Alfikri and my last three digits of my student number is 044.
My name is Amshah Ramani Mirzani and my last student ID number is 052.
My name is Desaki Algifari and my name number is 056.
My name is Ratna Wulandari and my last student number is 082.
Today, I would like to begin by explaining what should be included in introduction of essay. The introduction is the first part of an essay, and its main purpose is to capture the reader's attention and introduce the topic clearly. First, an introduction should begin with a general statement. This is a broad idea related to the topic that helps the reader understand the context. It can be a fact, a question, or a general opinion that leads into the subject. Next, the introduction should gradually move from general ideas to more specific information. This helps guide the reader step by step toward the main focus of an essay. Another important part is the thesis statement, which is usually placed at the end of the introduction. The thesis statement is the most important sentence because it clearly states the main idea or purpose of the essay and gives direction to the entire discussion. In addition, a good introduction may also include a brief overview or roadmap of what will be discussed in the body paragraph so the reader knows what to expect. Overall, the strong introduction should be clear, engaging, and focused as it sets the foundation for the rest of the essay.
The body of an essay is the core of the entire piece of writing. In these sections, the writer not only expresses an opinion but also provides strong evidence to support each argument. This evidence can be in the form of facts, data, concrete examples, or quotes from reliable sources. Each paragraph in the body should have a clear topic sentence. This sentence serves as an introduction to the paragraph's contents and should relate to the thesis statement presented at the beginning of the essay. This ensures the entire discussion remains focused and does not deviate from the main topic. After the topic sentence, the paragraph is developed with explanations, example, and relevant evidence so that readers can more easily understand the writer's intent. Writers need to use transitional sentences to create a more cohesive flow between paragraphs. These sentences serve as connectors, making the writing flow smoother and easier for readers to understand. Furthermore, writers must provide sufficient examples and evidence to strengthen their arguments. It's not enough to simply list the evidence. It should be followed by an explanations that demonstrates the relationship between the evidence and the idea being discussed. It's also crucial to always cite the source correctly to increase credibility and prevent plagiarisms.
Hello everyone, next I will explaining about the conclusion. Let's begin. The conclusion is the closing section of an essay. Its role is to bring all your argument together, reinforce your central message, and leave the reader with something lasting. Here, what a conclusion is not, it is not a repetition of your introduction. It is not a place to introduce brand new argument or evidence. What is a space for synthesis, reflection, and closure. Why does the conclusion matter so much? It's because this is a very lasting your reader encourage. It shapes their final perception of your entire work. While a weak ending can undermine even the strongest paragraph, a powerful, well-crafted conclusion can evaluate your entire argument. It shows that you as the writer have full command of your subject. Next is effective conclusion element. For the first, rephrase in the fresh language. The second is connecting the dots between main point. The third is a thought provoking statement or implication. And the last is powerful quote or call to reflection. Let's talk about what not to do in conclusion. Because these mistakes are very common. Do not start with tired phrase like in conclusion as I have shown. This is a weak and formalistic. Do not introduce new evidence or a new argument that belong in the body. Do not simply copy your introduction. This show a lack of development. Do not and brevity. Your reader deserves a sense of resolution, and do not make the conclusion unnecessarily long. It is also important to know that the conclusion should be tailored to the type of essay you are writing. In an argumentative essay, in an analysis essay, in a narrative essay, and in compare and contrast essay. The conclusion is not one size fits all. It must serve the purpose of your specific essay. The conclusion is the final act of any essay. A strong conclusion synthesizes your argument, restate your thesis meaningfully, and leave your reader with a purpose lasting closure. So make sure you write a good conclusion for the final act of your writing. I think that's all about conclusion. Thank you.
One of the most important things of writing an essay is unity. In essay writing, unity means that all parts of your paragraph or essay focus on one main idea. Everything you write should support or explain or relate to one single idea. Nothing should feel off topic. We can think of it like this. If your essay has a main point, we often call the main point is a thesis statement. Every sentence should help develop or prove that the point. For the paragraph, one paragraph equals one main idea, and all sentences in the paragraph support that idea.
Welcome to the next section, order. Now, what is an order? Have you guys ever read an essay that felt confusing even though the ideas were good? And that usually happens when the essay has no clear order. So, what is order actually? Order means that an essay follows a clear, logical line of thought and leads to a definite conclusion. A good essay, of course, should not just be a collection of random ideas thrown together, but instead all ideas should be connected and organized properly. Now, there are three main ways to organize ideas logically. The first is chronological order or order of time. This means arranging ideas based on time. It is often used in narratives or stories. For example, first I woke up, then I went to school, and after that I had lunch. The second is spatial order or order of place. This means that we arrange idea based on the location or position. It is commonly used when describing place or objects. For example, at the top of the building, below the building, or on the left side of it. And the third is emphatic order or order of importance. This means arranging ideas from the least important to the most important. This type of order is very common, especially in more formal or academic writing. For example, there are several reasons, but the most important one is. Now, let's take a look at a quick example of one sentence with and without order. So, for example, for without order, I like school. My teacher is kind. I study math. The classroom is big. Now, but with order, first, I arrive at school and greet my teacher. Then, I study math in a big classroom. The second one, of course, sounds much cleaner because it now follows a logical order. So remember, a good essay must have a clear line of thought, not just random ideas.
Next characteristic for essays. Brevity. Brevity. What is brevity? Brevity means short duration by definition. But if we imply it on the context of the essays, well, it should be a word sentence or a word that is efficient and not long. The essay should not be extremely long. The limit should be about 300 words. Though, of course, There can be no rule or strict as to the length of the essays. It depends on a good deal of nature of the subject, but an essay should be a brief exercise, concisely expressed. It's about getting your points across clearly and effectively without unnecessary words, whether in writing, speaking, or daily conversation. It is supposed to be short and sharp, intentional, impactful, and also keeps the meaning. Cutting down the word is easy, of course, that's not the challenge, but make sure your message still makes sense. That's the tricky part. Say too little and people might not get what you're trying to say and will indeed lose interest towards the essays. Finding the right balance is indeed the key. We have to often feel the need to explain everything, but not every detail matters. Knowing what to keep and what to cut takes practice towards the essays without losing its meaning. Finding the right balance is key. Example, the sentence, she made a quick decision to accept the offer without really thinking about the long-term consequences. It can be shortened as, for and be brief for, she accepted the offer without considering long-term consequences.
After understanding the characteristic of a good essay, I will now explain the type of essay, which is the research essay. A research essay is a type of writing that presents information based on data and sources that have been studied or analyzed. Unlike general essays, a research essay relies on fact rather than personal opinion. There are two main types of research essays. The first is the argumentative research essay, which aim to prove a specific point or argument using evidence. The writer must take a clear position and support it with a fact, data, and logical reasoning. The second is the analytical research essay, which focuses on analyzing a topic objectively. Instead of trying to persuade the reader, this type explains information and helps the reader understand the subject more deeply. A good research essay usually includes several key elements. It starts with interesting topic and clearly defines the problem being discussed. It also provides definition of important terms so the reader can understand the topic easily. In addition, the essay must present information from reliable sources and end with a conclusion that summarizes the research finding. Overall, the purpose of research essay is to inform, explain, or prove something using accurate and well-organized information.
An argumentative or persuasive essay is a type of writing that aims to convince reader that the author's opinion on a topic is correct, or at least stronger than other opinions. In this essay, the writer not only presents an opinion but also attempts to support it with logical reasoning and evidence. Therefore, the topic chosen is usually a controversial issue. And one important characteristic of this essay is the presence of counter-arguments. This means the writer must demonstrate their understanding of the opposing opinion and explain why it is incorrect or less compelling. Furthermore, the writer must have a clear positions on the topic discussed. Readers should be able to immediately understand whether they agree or disagree with an issue. Afterward, the writer needs to present a persuasive arguments, namely a reason that convince the reader why their position is the most correct or reasonable. And to strengthen their arguments, the writer must support the thesis statement with various pieces of evidence that can provoke the reader's thinking. However, in conveying all of this, the writer must avoid excessive bias. This means that even though the writer wants to convince the writer must still appear logical, fair, and avoid forcing opinions emotionally. Now, this is a short example of argumentative text. Social media should be limited for teenagers because it can negatively affect their mental health. Many studies show that excessive use of social media increases anxiety and lowers self-esteem among young users. Although some people argue that social media helps teenagers stay connected, this benefit does not outweigh the psychological risk. Teenagers often compare themselves to unrealistic standards they see online, which can harm their confidence. Therefore, setting time limits on social media use is a reasonable solution to protect teenagers' well-being. Based on the short example of an argumentative text, it can be seen that the author is attempting to convince readers that social media use among teenagers should be limited. The author also provides clear reason for the opinion and also provides counter-arguments. It also presents a logical conclusion.
Hello everyone. Now we will focus on the analysis essay. Let's begin. So, what exactly is analysis essay? Simply put, it is a piece of academic writing that presents a critical, evidence-based assessment of a subject, whether that a text, a concept, a behavior, or even a social phenomenon. What makes it different from other essay types is that an analysis essay doesn't just describe or summarize. It breaks things down and evaluate them. It demands what we call higher order thinking, the ability to interpret, infer, and evaluate with depth and precision. You'll find this type of easy across many academic disciplines, from literature to science to social studies. Why do we write analysis essay? There are four key purposes. First, to examine, to investigate how and why something functions the way it does. Second, to interpret, to draw meaningful conclusion beyond what visible on the surface. Third, to evaluate, to assess strength, limitation, and broader implication. And fourth, to argue, to define a clear, well-reasoned position using solid evidence. Remember, this analysis does not simply ask what something is, it asks what it means and how it works. Let's look at the core feature that define an analysis essay. There are five essential elements. For first, a specific claim about the subject. The second is support by fake data or text. The third is examining logic and assumption. And the fourth is claim, evidence, and analysis. And the last is synthesizing insight. Now, we move structure. An analysis essay begins with an introduction, a hook, some context, and your thesis statement. Then come from body paragraph, each beginning with a topic sentence, followed by evidence, your analysis of the evidence, and a transition to the next point. And finally, the conclusion, which this state the thesis. And one crucial rule is every single paragraph must advance your argument, not just describe or detail. One of the most common mistakes students make is confusing analysis with summary. Let me make this very clear. A summary details what happened, and analysis explain why or how it mattered. A summary, it describes, and analysis is evaluate. Here an example of a strong analytical essay, introduction about the idea of human mission to Mars. Notice how it opened with a broad context, the long-standing human fascination with Mars, and toward a specific analytical position, evaluating whether humanity is truly prepared for such an undertaking. It signals their three dimensions. The essay will explore scientific, ethical, and logical. That is the mark of focus, well-directed analytical introduction. An analysis essay critically examines its subject through evidence, logic, and rigorous academic reasoning. It argues, it interprets, it evaluates, it does not merely describe. And I think that's all about analysis essay. Thank you.
A compare and contrast essay analyze two or more subjects by examining their similarities and differences. Compare and contrast essay are informative because they discuss a subject in one or two ways. Either it identifies likeliness between two ideas or things that are commonly thought to be different, or it identifies differences between two items that commonly thought to be similar. There are two methods of writing this type of essay, which include two methods that commonly authors use. The first method is the author can write all the information about the first subject of comparison, then the author goes on to write about the points of another subject. The second method is one can take similar aspects of its subjects and compare and contrast them rather than separating the subject.
Hello, welcome to the next section of type of essay. In here, I will talk about descriptive essay. Now, what is a descriptive essay? A descriptive essay is an essay that describes a place, a thing, or sometimes a person. For example, you can describe animals, plants, or natural objects, towns, countries, or buildings, natural phenomena like rain or sunlight, or even man-made objects like cars or machines. Now, it is important to remember that a descriptive essay rarely stands completely alone. In many cases, description is actually part of another type of essay, such as narrative or an explanation. But even so, learning how to describe well is very important. So there are a couple of features of descriptive essay that is important for you to know. The first is it has a specific subject, so you must clearly focus on one subject, for example, your classroom, a park, or a favorite subject. The second is specific and descriptive details. So you do not be too general. Instead of saying the room is nice, you can say the room is bright with blue walls and large windows. The third is sensory details. A good description uses the five senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. For example, the food is warm, spicy, and smells delicious. 4 is it has a clear pattern of organization. Even in a descriptive essay, your ideas must of course be organized clearly. You can use spatial order or another logical order to help the reader follow your description. The fifth is use of adjective and adverbs. Descriptive essay often use adjective to describe nouns and adverbs to give more details. For example, the soft wind blew gently through the trees. So, as a final example for descriptive essay, my classroom is bright and comfortable. The walls are painted light blue and sunlight enters through large windows. The desks are neatly arranged and a soft breeze makes the room feel fresh. This description uses clear details and it will really help the reader imagine how the scene looked like. Now, that is all for descriptive essay.
Evaluation. In our everyday lives, we are constantly evaluating, making judgments, and forming opinions. Evaluative essays seek to prompt readers to examine their own values and to perhaps accept the view of the writer. This type of essay can be used in book and movie reviews, or it can be used to describe a work process, such as a recipe. There are some features and evaluation included: an adequately described subject, an assertion or definitive judgment, an argument based on the reasonable criteria, and a clear pattern of organization.
First, let's talk about the narrative essay. Narrative essays are typically about detailed experiences that the writer has faced in life. It is a story that is meaningful to the author, which can be either real or imaginary. It describes how a certain event changed a major part of the writer's life and how he or she reacted to this event. A narrative has a point to make and an idea to pass on. The writer uses details that are significant and merges them to build up a storyline that is easy for the reader to follow. Here are the features of narrative essay. First is an introduction that clearly indicates the topic. This could be an event, a recurring activity, a personal experience, or an observation. Second is personal stories and a great amount of detail. Third, it is generally written in first person. And last is the writer should be personalized, reflecting the unique writer style and personality of the writer. Next, let's discuss the expository essay. The purpose of an expository essay is to present completely and fairly the views of others. It can also report about an event or a situation. Expository writing present a subject in detail apart from criticism, arguments, or development. Here are the features of an expository essay. First, a clear, concise, and well-defined thesis statement. This is usually the last sentences of the introductory paragraph and contains the main idea of the essay. Second is clear and logical transition between paragraphs. Third is body paragraphs with evidential support. And fourth is evidences that is presented with creativity. And last is a conclusion that restates the thesis and highlights the evidences presented to support it. And next is what is a classification essay? Now let's look at the classification essay. A classification essay arranges and organizes a topic or subject into categories. The purpose of a classification essay is to break things down so they can be further investigated. Here are the features of a classification essay. First is complex subdivisions with detailed information about each class. Second, consistency in the categories. This means ensuring all the information leads back to one point. And the third is each category must be exclusive to the information provided in it. No two categories can overlap information. In conclusion, each essay that we've discussed had its own purpose and importance. The task of writing essay may seem daunting, but given the appropriate amount of time to write it and learning what the criteria is, essays become a lot easier to tackle. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
In conclusion, an essay is a structured piece of writing used to express ideas, provide information, or present arguments in a clear and organized way. To produce a good essay, writer must understand both its characteristics and structures. A strong essay should have unity, logical order, clarity, and concise expression, supported by a proper structure consisting of an introduction, body, and conclusion. In addition to structure, essays also come in various types, each with a different purpose. These include narrative, descriptive, expository, argumentative, analytical, and research essay. Furthermore, writing a good essay requires preparation, such as understanding the topic, collecting ideas, organizing them logically, and expressing them in a clear and effective language. By mastering these elements such as type, characteristic, structure, and writing process, we can create essays that are not only well written but also meaningful and impactful. So, that's all from our group. Thank you for your attention.